You know, there's a lot of great OU podcasts, but there's only one where the horns are always down. Ladies and gentlemen, this is the Horns Down Podcast.
People, it's been a long time. I mean, it's been a long time. I feel like singing an old blues song. It's been a long time, boy. Ty Hayes is back with us, people. Ty Hayes, Around the Table Sports. You know, hey, look, it's beautiful to see him back on the channel. This is like the OG of OG reunions, comeback tours right here. You know what I'm saying? Him being on the channel. As you all know, when Ty first started doing live streams, how I was on there with him, I hit him up after watching a video he did about DJ Campbell, and I said, "Hey man, you wanna do a collab or so?" I just come in and I was watching just random videos of his on YouTube while I was out in Nashville one summer, and I was just like, "Yeah, I gotta get him on the show. I gotta link with this guy." Ever since then, we've been tight. This is my guy right here, Ty. What's up, man?
Man, not a whole lot. Excited for this weekend. Excited to talk OU versus BAMA. I know there's a lot of people writing this game off on both sides of the aisle. I don't think that's the way to go, and we'll break down as to why I don't think that you can just write this off regardless of what's happened all year.
So Ty, let's just go ahead and jump into it. If you don't mind, I'll go ahead and just kind of give you a couple of my quick thoughts. First and foremost, I agree with what you said. I think I'll just piggyback off of that by saying this right here is that the Texas fans and everybody else, and that's perfectly fine, deservingly so. When you're a blue blood, when you're a top dog, and when you've been on top, and when you get kicked down and you're down, it's fine. Come get you a hit, right? But I will say this right here, people. I think. I hopefully Ty will back me up when I say this. I'm not necessarily sure that it's because we moved to the SEC that we've been bad. I think it's more of OU versus OU, meaning the defense is trying to make up for the offense, and we know what the offensive woes that we've had. So I don't necessarily think it's that, but just directly hitting on this game. I've said it, and I'll say it again. I think OU's defense is going to have a good day. I'm not going to sit here and say that we're going to hold you guys to 10 points, 15, under 20 points, or whatever the case may be. I think you guys are going to be able to move the ball, but I do think this is going to be a game where you could see Milroe have to figure out, okay, they're trying to contain me. I'm gonna have to. I think OU's defense may force him to try to throw the ball a lot more than what he may want to. I think they may try to obviously spy him, do different things, but it's a Venables defense. Zach Alley has been pretty good. We have a really good run defense, containing him, keeping him from running outside and kind of stretch plays or whatever. That's going to be the key. But I think this is a game where you're going to see a lot of disguising, lot of blitzing coming from different places. And I think this is a game where the defense has a really good day for OU. But it's a game that I just see us, just like every other game we play this year. It's good to a point until that dam breaks, right? It's good until that offense goes out there and we score a touchdown and then we stall for the next 4 drives and then we finally get some points. But by then, we've already had a turnover here, a turnover there, and put you guys in good field position. And then you guys are up, 21-7. And I'm just not sure that we can come back from that. But I think this is a game where I kind of put it on 2 things where I say, Milroe, can you make Milroe uncomfortable, which I believe that Venables and company can do? And 2, can our offense move the football? And what I mean by that is that I think we can move the football, but we have to do something that a lot of teams have tried and have had some success with, some more than others. You have to test that secondary. You cannot sit there and try to run the ball. You cannot sit there and try to go east to west. You have, as talented as your corners are, Ty, as talented as your safeties are, sometimes, and this is my biggest complaint with Kanai Walker, the talent is there, but the technique, it gets sloppy as the game goes on from time to time. And so some teams catch on to that and some teams catch that. And I've seen the teams that are willing to throw at your talented secondary, they are it's kind of 50-50. It's either going to be a good day or it's going to be a bad day. But you have to take your chances. You have to take this test the secondary, because there's not necessarily a weak part of your team or your defense, but I would say that would be the part that I would go after if it was me calling the offense for OU on Saturday night.
Yeah, I disagree in part with some of that. And here's my main disagreement. I think that the biggest way to start having success against Alabama this year isn't actually throwing the football. I mean, Garrett Nussmeier was held to under 250 yards, and I think 70 of those yards actually came when Bama's third string defense was in. It was the only time they got a touchdown because Brian Kelly kept his starters in there and just kept throwing the football. Great learning for Bama's second string, third string guys, but the first string secondary has really grown now to where Damani Jackson is going to be a name to watch to whether or not he declares for the NFL. Selfishly, I hope he comes back because I think he's got all the ability to be a top corner, maybe the top corner if he comes back for one more year, because the guy this is his first full season of high school football since I believe his sophomore year. If I'm wrong on that, please someone drop it down. I can't remember quite, but I think he got hurt his junior year, and then senior year was the pandemic. Freshman year at USC was redshirt. Second year was a little banged up, didn't get to play the full season. And this year, he's been the guy at Bama. So that's a credit to Mo Linguist, the DB coach at Alabama. He's done a sensational job. Like, I already thought it was a good hire, but I thought he has gone above and beyond, considering that when you look, the secondary is very, very young outside of Malachi Moore. Everybody else is first-year players, really, even Damani Jackson to a degree. I think for OU, the way that you're going to try and establish something is by running the football, because I don't think Bama's rush defense is bad. It's not. But it's not been the typical stonewall Bama rush defense, and that's a little bit because schematically they're doing things a little bit different. You'll see some different looks, and that's where if I was OU, I'd be concerned throwing the football, because I don't think Oklahoma has played a defense. Like, you've played some good defenses. I think Texas's defense, close your ears, Sooner fans, they're really good. Like, that Texas defense is really, really good.
South Carolina
has a great defense as well, no doubt about it. In fact, South Carolina's got the best edge rush duo in the nation, and then some dogs on the interior. But what I think Bama does that not many teams do quite as well is they show you something pre-snap, and then they do something totally different post-snap. If we go back to the first half against Georgia, or even this most recent LSU game, I think LSU is probably the way to go, because Kane Womack, defensive coordinator for Alabama, he even talked this week that he was rusty calling plays for the first time in some years. He was a former head coach, come to Alabama as a defensive coordinator. He's knocked the rust off. He now understands his personnel. The personnel now understands the scheme, but they would show Nuss the same look or an analogous look time and time again, but then they would do 12 different things out of that same look, and he was confused. He didn't know what was up, what was down. Unfortunately for Oklahoma, you have young quarterbacks who have struggled this year. And I think if you try and force throwing the ball, that's where you could get into turnovers, because Bama is one of the best teams in the nation at taking the ball away right now. And they're going to show Arnold something pre-snap, and then when the ball is snapped, if he already is keyed in on his guy, that looks going to be totally different.
Now,
No, that's pretty much what. Go ahead.
I was just going to say this right here. Now, I'm saying, to me, in an ideal situation, let me come in on the back end of this. If OU was OU of old, and I would say, let's test the secondary. Let's do what we need to do. But our offensive line, right? Our offensive line has, to me, honestly, our offensive line has not played terrible maybe since the South Carolina game, Ole Miss game, it was good enough. Missouri game, good enough, right? There's been a bunch of games, Tennessee, a lot of different games where you can say, hey, the O-line played well enough for you to win. Defensively, you played more than well enough for you to win. It always comes back to the offense. So there was there was an East Coast, West Coast battle as far as that's what I described the offense as between whenever Luttrell was the offensive coordinator. But to the point, Ty, what I'm trying to say is that in the ideal world, that's what the game plan should be. Running the football, yes, Javonte Barnes, if he's healthy, but if you're going to go ahead and burn X Robinson's his red shirt, you need to play that kid. You need to see a heavy dose of that kid and probably Tatum, in my mind, if you're going to run the ball. Somebody that's going to hit the hole really fast, not dance back there. And then another guy who, like I said, I think right now, watching him run, you can see a lot of Kennedy Brooks in him, and that's just that DeMarco Murray style. It's kind of his signature, being patient, running behind blocks, but being a bruiser as well. But I see Ramondre or better when I see that kid, Ramondre Stevenson, people. But Ty, I mean, we don't throw the ball down the field anyways. So I doubt that that's going to happen, right? There's a stubbornness there. There is a tentativeness there. There is a lot of different things. If you go back to the Missouri game, I'm sure that you watched it, and I'm sure you were infuriated as well. Deion Burks is running down the field on damn near just a crossing route. Looks like he was just crossing the field and just was wide open. Jackson, guys are not even 8 yards around him. And I'm not trying to just, crap on the kid, but basically I'm just saying that nobody's even near him. Offensive line is playing well enough, protecting you well enough to give you another second or two to be able to find that and see it. You could see that his head was turning that way, but when he felt that pressure, started kind of getting happy feet, and that's whenever he went and took the coverage sack, right? So basically, man, it's one of those things where what we should do, what I would like for us to do game plan wise, I don't think we're going to be able to do, simply because we just don't do that. And if we do take a deep shot, it's usually one or two to Hester, and that's in itself kind of a 50-50 thing unless he's open. So I'm excited about this game simply because I know I feel like I know what it could be. I feel like it's a game that's not necessarily a 20-30 point loss unless we just go out there and crap the bed on offense, which could very well happen with turnovers and other different things that have become the huge this season. But Ty would say, man, I just feel good about our defensive game plan. Stopping that run game that you guys have is going to be key as well. Really like Haynes and Miller back there. So those are going to be two backs that you have to do. I don't want to see us in a 3-man front. That odd front has kind of plagued us this year. I think when our stubbornness to get out of that is kind of what helped Texas kind of just pull away a little bit in that game that we played them. I didn't think that Wisner or anybody else was, just super elite or super amazing. I thought that our stubbornness to get out of that 3-man front was kind of an issue. But I mean, just coming into this game, it's going to be a really good game, but it's just, OU has to actually do different stuff. It can't be more of the same. I thought that just kind of going back to the Ole Miss game plan, honestly, that was a really good game. That was a well-called game. And you got some of your dogs back, but I think a lot of OU fans had a bad taste left in their mouth because you're saying, hey, we got Farouk back, we got Burks back, but then after that game, you're just thinking with the way that they were used, what was even the point of bringing them back?
Yeah, and I think when we flip the script and talk Alabama's offense against OU's defense, I do agree Oklahoma is going to try and stop the run because they know, you talk about Jam, you talk about Justice, but Jalen Milroe is different than any other quarterback Oklahoma has faced. Lenora Sellers is probably the closest comparison, but the difference is when Milroe is in his bag throwing the ball, this year at least, he has been really good. And I think that hopefully that's what he's getting back to. The Tennessee game really hurt because there were receivers running wide open, just couldn't hit them. And that was a real sore spot. But if you look at what he did to that Georgia defense, I mean, he torched them. He took everything. My biggest concern, if I'm an Oklahoma fan, is that you're going to consistently have one safety in the box. And if you have one safety in the box to account for Justice, Jam, and Jalen running the football, if you have Woody Washington one-on-one with Ryan Williams, I'm sorry, that guy's going to get cooked, fried, and it's just not going to work. Ryan Williams ran a 10.3 900-meter dash as a sophomore in high school, and now he's a 17-year-old freshman in college who skipped his senior year. I mean, we're looking at corners that are going to be taken highly in the draft that are struggling to cover this guy. And then if you try and bracket Ryan Williams, then you have Jeremy Bernard on the other side. You have Kendrick Law. You have Robbie Oots. So that's my biggest question for Oklahoma is how are you going to account for both trying to stop the run and try and stop the pass? But this is where it's great that you have Brent Venables. I mean, a brilliant defensive mind. I'm really excited to see what he's able to do. My biggest worry, though, if I was an Oklahoma fan, is that if Alabama's passing game comes out and it's like it was against Georgia, and then they force you into a too-high safety, that Jalen Milroe just starts doing Jalen Milroe things and runs all over the place. Because, I mean, I think they had him as one of the top speeds thus far in college football. They clocked him at like 22.9 miles per hour. The guy is an unbelievable athlete.
Now, Ty, this is my only counter to that. I mean, would you not? In my mind, I think we come out there. I don't necessarily say we're going to play straight up. I don't think you're going to take the aggressiveness away out of a BV defense, right? I don't think you're going to see. I definitely think that you'll see RSJ or Billy Bowman kind of creep up or whatnot, but you never know what that guy is going to do. But I mean, and that's kind of what hurts us is that you probably wouldn't see what you were talking about if Dolby was still healthy, right? Because Dolby can kind of be that guy.
Yeah.
But the biggest thing for me for Milroe is just making sure that we are there with our DBs, right? Eli Bowen, who's he going to be on? If Kanai is going to play, if Dez is going to be out there, those guys have to be accountable. We can't give up deep shots, deep balls, can't do do stuff like that. We have to be there, right? Because Ryan Williams, I mean, you guys have a really good wide receiving core. It's not just Ryan Williams. I mean,
Jeremy Bernard,
he's a phenom, but you guys got some other guys that have big games as well. And some guys that are KD-like in a sense to where you look up at the scoreboard and you're like, he had 30? You know what I'm saying? Like he had that many yards alongside of what he was doing. Nobody's talking about that because of the crazy, he catches Ryan Williams catches a 40-yard bomb between two guys, does a spin move, gets out of that, runs 20 more yards for a touchdown. You're just like, hey, this is insane, right? So, I mean, I get that, but I think our 4-man rush. Right, I think having an even front, Stutz and Kip Lewis with Kobe in there, Deshaun McCullough. I think guys like that. That's where you could really counter that, and that's when that could really help, and that could help tremendously. Kip is having a solid year. Danny is Danny. I think Deshaun McCullough, given the season that we're having. What he's doing out there on the field is being overshadowed. He's playing really, really good football. He's playing really, really good football. Nobody's talking about it right now, but he's taking a step. I want to see him make that leap next year and be healthy the full season because I think that guy could run up a lot of boards, a lot of mock draft boards next year. But no, man, I think, but that's how I would attack our defense, to be honest with you. I would try to establish the run, kind of lull us to sleep a little bit, and then I would pick on those DBs all day. I would isolate them and figure out where my matchups are, and I would attack them all day. Eli Bowen is probably your best corner right now.
Yeah, like him. Really like his game.
Eli is your best corner. I would say you're probably your second best corner. You could put Kanai there, but I know a lot of people are a little bit sour on Kanai. I'd probably put Jacoby there simply because what he provides you is just really consistency. He's not a guy that he hasn't showed yet that he's just, unbelievably athletic or just unbelievable at what he does or a lockdown corner. But when you get him out there for 10 plays, probably 6 to 8 of those plays are going to be really good plays and consistent plays. So the consistency is there. So you're not necessarily worried about that. Dez has just kind of been injured a little bit, but I think he's played well as well. He's a guy that I wish had another year to come back. It would be nice if we could get a bit of a pass rush. R. Mason Thomas, how do you feel about your offensive line with our pass rush?
Yeah, I think that if you're going to have success, it'll probably come off the right side of the offensive line. The left side of Alabama's offensive line has been really, really good. I mean, this was an offensive line that allowed, and this is crazy to think about, right? How many sacks has OU allowed this year? If you know off the top of your head.
Like, I think it's in the 20s. I think it's like 20 plus possibly.
So this is why I say that. It's incredible that Alabama allowed 48 sacks last year and was still in the college football playoffs and took Michigan to overtime and had a botched snap on the last play of the game that really ended it. This year, I think they're at like 16, 17 sacks allowed, and most of that came off of the right side whenever the right tackle was playing hurt. Now, the right guard situation, I'm not sure if Jaden Roberts is going to be playing in this game. He's been a little bit banged up. If he's playing, I feel very good about Alabama's offensive line. I think Bama arguably has the best center in the nation in Parker Brailsford. I think Bama arguably has the best guard in the nation in Tyler Booker. And Caden Proctor is playing at an unbelievable level. So if you're going to generate that pass rush, I think it's going to come off of the right side. And if I was Brent Venables, that's where I would attack heavily, is by sending pressure off that right side. And yes, it makes you a bit predictable. And I'm not saying I would forego the left side. You got to remain multiple. But I think that's where you're going to have most of your success generating a pass rush.
No, I could see that. I could see our and I'm not, look, Georgia fans or whoever is watching this, I'm not trying to sit here and talk about y'all or compare, but I really like my defensive line. Dominic Williams. I like Jaden Jackson. Stoney is starting to come around. I think he's going to have a big year next year. I'm forgetting some. G Baby is playing out of his mind as well. So I think there will be times to at least get hurries and stuff like that. I think your defensive line will be fine. Ethan Downs playing on that left side. He should be able to kind of stabilize some things over there. Just keep at least at the edge and make sure that we're not letting things loose. Biggest things, we just can't let those gaps come, because I feel like this is a game where we could see DeBoer say, hey, let's attack those edges. Let's really run off the tackles opposed to trying to do any type of inside.
Well, that's how Bama runs.
Yeah.
They've been most successful this year off the edges. Now, that being said, Justice Haynes over the past 2 games against really, foregoing Mercer, but against Missouri and against LSU, he's really started to evolve his game as an interior rusher, and he's gotten so much better at that. And I think it's the confidence. J.M. Miller is a great running back, but he naturally kind of wants to attack the edges. And that's where Alabama's been the most successful all year, is attacking the edges with the running game.
Yeah, man. Look, like I said, man, I think it's going to be a really good game. It's hard to sit here and me, you know me, Ty. Ty, in this, whatever we want to call it, this community or whatever, you're one of my best friends. So you know me. It's not that I'm just a homer, but I can't pick against my boys.
Naturally,
so
100%.
I am going to go out on a limb. I know people are going to give me hell in the comments. I'm going to go. This is crazy because I don't even know if we can score this much. I'm going to go OU 23, Bama 17.
Okay.
That's the best I can do, Ty, because I'm so used to being like, hey, man, it's going to be a cool 52-24 type of ordeal. We got this. Y'all have fun while y'all down here in Norman. But, yeah, 52. But, we don't have 52 in us right now.
I'm really interested. To me, this game right here, even more so than the Auburn game, is going to tell me where Alabama goes for the rest of the season, because it's a really good schedule placement if you're Oklahoma.
Mm-hmm.
You just came off of, yes, Alabama had Mercer last week, but they have the Iron Bowl next weekend, and it's Kalen DeBoer's first Iron Bowl. So, I mean, that's easily one of the biggest games in college football, certainly one of the biggest games on Bama's schedule. To get Oklahoma before that, I think, is a good thing for Oklahoma. Alabama, though, has to be in the mindset that every game they've played after the Tennessee game, they're in the playoffs. That it's win or you're done, right? Like, you're just not going to make the playoffs. See you in the New Year's 6. That's the end of that.
Ty, are we at that low of a point that you say, hey, you guys should be happy that we're coming to you guys at this point, and then we got to play in the Iron Bowl because we're thinking about that guy? Is that where we're at?
No.
Are we that low to where you consider us a trap game now?
Yes and no. It's nothing bad that y'all have done, but you're so injured, right? Like you've had so many moving parts. So I don't say that as any disrespect to Oklahoma, but I would have this analysis for any team that's not a top 4 team in the SEC right now, because what the Iron Bowl means to Alabama, right? What that game means to the community, to Tuscaloosa, and it's Kalen DeBoer's first Iron Bowl.
I think where you guys are at now with that game is like, hey, we need a blowout in that game. I think we're tired of playing close with these guys.
Well,
that's kind of how we are.
Usually when it's in Tuscaloosa, it doesn't go well for Auburn.
Yeah, that's kind of how we are, and like with Okie Light, like it's just it sucks playing like tight sometimes with them. You just like, hey, even that even leaves a bad taste in my mouth. Like the 4th and Milrow last year, I know that still pissed you off deep down inside it was even to that point, you know?
No, because it hurt them that much that happened. So that made up for everything, right? Like that equalized everything. All sour taste was out of my mouth whenever that game ended the way it did, because all I've heard for years is kick six. Fair. One of the greatest plays we've seen in college football. But then we got our lick back with 4th and Milrow, 4th and 31. Boom, hit it to the end zone, game over. For me, if I'm saying the score prediction, I have 2 ways this game goes. Either one, I think it could be 31-14 to 27-13 in favor of Alabama, if Oklahoma is able to try and mitigate Alabama's rushing attack. If the rushing attack gets going and Jalen Milrow comes out like he did against Georgia, I think this could get ugly, and I think it could get ugly really quick. Because while I like Oklahoma's defensive front, I'd take Georgia's secondary over OU's secondary. And Milrow absolutely torched them, had close to like 300 yards and a half against them. If he's on passing the football, I think that's going to make this real hard for Oklahoma, especially with the offensive woes you've had. But it's interesting, you talked about Xavier Robinson. That's a name I actually wrote down, that if I'm Oklahoma, I'm burning the red shirt. That's the guy I would main against Alabama, because I think Taylor Tatum's great. He's had problems fumbling the football, and Bama takes the ball away a lot. Yeah. And I mean, they're
Lawson
coming after
and the rest of that group. They are lurkers at that second level. You got to be a man when you cross that second level. You got to be a man when you're going over there.
Jahad Campbell right now may have elevated himself to linebacker 1 in the draft. I think over the past 2 or 3 weeks, he has something like 37 tackles, an interception, forced fumble, 4 sacks, and like 10 tackles for loss. And that's over the past like 3 weeks. It's insane, his production right now. And I don't want to say it, but they're comping him to Micah Parsons. Like that guy is just different. Actually came to Alabama as a 5-star edge and has since moved to inside linebacker, having an unbelievable season. I don't think it's 10 and a half sack or tackles for loss. I think it's less than that. I don't know.
Now, speaking of linebacker, I can't let you go there and gloat about yours and me not gloat about my
Stutz
daddy.
Is insane. Yeah.
Hey, daddy,
Stutz is insane.
This is a day where I can see Danny having 10 plus tackle day. I think
he has to.
Yeah,
he has to.
Yeah,
Stutz is insane, no doubt about that. He's an incredible football player, and I'm actually going to be sad when he goes to the NFL, because he's one of those guys, right? Like I have a list every year of football players that I just love watching play the game. USC had one in Gentry who got hurt and then shut down. Loved watching him play football. Just such a unique athlete. Ricardo Hallman up at Wisconsin. Love watching him play. Danny Stutzman, Oklahoma. Love it. Jahad Campbell on the defensive side for Alabama is just an unbelievable football player. So it's going to be great.
Stutz, what a lot of people are not even really talking about with Stutzman is that he's set the standard for what the linebacker or what the prototypical linebacker should look like at OU under BV.
I agree.
And the crazy thing is, and I think he would tell you this, there are guys on that roster right now that are better than him. They just don't have that experience with it, right?
Yeah, your linebacker room's just fine. Very deep position group there.
That's what's crazy. Really good. Well, Ty, you are not only a Bama diehard, but you are a fan of college football, all good college football. Ty is not like ugly football. Yeah, that's between the Aggies, a little bit of Auburn, and bad football. That's where you will find Ty Hayes pissed off. But Ty, you are what I would consider kind of a lighthearted. Hey, I root for you guys from the distance. I'm a closet OU fan if I can. We've all seen the content. We know that you have a soft spot.
I got a lot of respect for Oklahoma.
We know you do, and we know that you love use of BV. So Ty Hayes, man, go ahead and tell us, man, what are your honest thoughts about this season? Why did it piss you off? How did it make you feel when Seth Luttrell was hired? And what did you see those first 6 or 7 games during the season leading up to to ultimately him being let go? Just kind of run us through your thoughts about OU this season.
Yeah, when talking about Oklahoma, I don't quite know where my opinion is. And the reason I say that is because you've had so many injuries. Like, it's not just for Bama, right? Like, Q-Rob, probably our best pass rusher, is out for the season. And that's a hit. That's one position. If I'm Oklahoma, I'm attacking the Wolf linebacker spot because I think they're talented and experienced. But for Bama, it's like, okay, Sab's out, Q-Rob's out. That sucks. For Oklahoma, it almost looks like I'm trying to read a dictionary every time your injury report comes out. There are just so many key players hurt. So it's tough for me to sit here and be like, oh, well, you should still be at the Oklahoma standard. Because I'm going to be honest with you, I don't think it's possible to achieve that standard whenever you have that many injuries. Now, that's not to say I let BV or anybody off the hook. One, I told Jay this before the season. We talked about it last night. I called him, and he and I were talking about this. He disagreed with me, but I did not like the Seth Luttrell hire. I was at UNT when he was at UNT, and everything was all good until Graham Harrell left. And then I walked out of multiple UNT games because it was some of the worst football I'd ever seen in my life. Like, undisciplined, no feel for the game, just awful, awful, awful football. I had a guy come up and meet me from San Antonio. We left in the second quarter. He drove all the way here to watch UNT to meet me at the game. We left in the second quarter. It was awful. And then when he gets to Oklahoma, the only thing I ever thought is this guy genuinely doesn't look like he has any feel for a game. Like, he looks lost in the middle of the ocean. And dare I say, do we now need to ask, did the UNC quarterback make Seth Luttrell? Because it was painful. And the Oklahoma Breakdown did a video about this. Even just watching him call blocking schemes, there were times where you would be doing a jet sweep and you have the guy on the far side of the line unblocked, and he's crushing the guy on the jet sweep 4 yards in the backfield. And I'm sitting there thinking, if you didn't know that was going to happen, you shouldn't be coaching college football. I hate to be this way. You need to go back to the ABCs of football. And Gabe ranted. I think you know the play I'm talking. Gabe ranted about it. He was like, how, and then leaving a tight end one-on-one with Kennard for South Carolina. Like, that was dumb. There's just no other way to say
too. He got they put him on both of them.
So that's why I think Oklahoma made the right move. Luttrell, I hate to say, I don't take any pleasure in saying this because I'm not even sitting here saying like I'm some football guru. I'm very much learning football. And I will never hide that fact. But I do know enough about football to be able to watch a game and ask, what the hell are you doing? There's no way you watch the other team all week and are trying to do these things. I think it's very important that you nail your offensive coordinator hire. I really think that's the case. But for the people thinking BV's not the guy, here's where you need to exercise caution. Let's just play into their scenario. You get rid of Brent Venables this year. Your roster is now open for 30 days to allow everybody in college football to pick them apart. There are going to be guys leave. Whether you want to admit it or not, there will be key guys leave because they're going to sit there and say, okay, we already are, I hate to say it, but in the bottom percentage of the SEC off of this year. Now our head coach leaves. Why am I going to stay here when all these other teams that are in the top of their conference are calling, saying, hey, come on down?
I believe that I had a call with a guy I'm pretty close with, and he said, hey, man, you know, there are a couple of kids on that team that I would definitely love to have. I think a lot of people in the SEC, I'm not talking about just any conference, the SEC, a lot of people in-house would love to have. They love to hide that kid. A lot of people around the nation would love to have.
You don't think Lane would be in that room? You don't think Lane Kiffin would be in that room? Hugh Freeze, like, they're just trying to get everybody. So if you fire Brent Venables, you have the 30-day transfer portal window that goes on top of the already existing transfer portal window. Whoever comes in has to re-recruit the recruiting class you just got there, has to re-recruit the roster because this is where we are in college football. And then who are you going to hire? Right? I understand OU is a blue blood, but OU right now, they're in a situation where whoever would be coming in and be the guy, they're going to be looking around because I've seen some people be like, oh, go get Dan Lanning. Dan Lanning's not leaving Oregon for Oklahoma. He has an unlimited NIL fund up there, and Oregon right now is the number one team in the country, and he's recruited one of the better recruiting classes in the nation. He's not leaving Oregon for Oklahoma. He's got nothing but job security there, and he doesn't have to do a rebuild. So keep Brent Venables for another year. And if it's still not working, you get rid of him. And I know that's not a popular take amongst some of the fans because they're like, oh, well, that would just put us further behind. But I worry that if you got rid of him now, it would be an actual fire.
It makes no sense to get rid of him. Ty, you already know. You don't have to be a football savant to say this, to know this. But in my opinion, if you're an offensive coordinator out there, and if you're borderline cocky, or if you're just really confident in what you're doing, you would have to be tickled to death to think, hey, potentially I'm going to have all these guys come back from injury, probably going to have some money to go out there in the portal and get better as far as at the tight end position, as far as even at receiver. I'm going to be able to tell some guys, hey, I'm about to put life into this offense. Not only that, you're going to bring in maybe a couple of coaches with you. You'll probably keep Beatonbow. Probably keep EJ. DeMarco would kind of be that one that you would just have to look out for. But if I'm offensive coordinator, I'm coming in there thinking to myself, oh, so you're telling me that all I have to do is just basically turn this switch back on, but the defense is still going to be here, and they could potentially be even better than what they are this year because a lot of those young guys, because there's beauty in a lot of this in this season. A lot of the young guys that are playing right now on the defensive side of the ball, especially. Come on, dude. Like, this is great because those guys are getting experience and they're excelling. You're not sitting there saying these guys have bad grades. You're sitting there saying, oh, that kid needs more snaps. That kid needs more snaps. But if you're sitting here telling me all I have to do is just try to turn back on this switch while the defense is still good and I still got BV, young BV in the way or in the making or as what you have with Zach Alley. I still have Ty Bates and all of them over there. And you're going to give me arguably the best offensive line coach in the nation. I just need to get people healthy. I'm all in because I know what I do. If we do what I know that we can do, we putting up points and stuff like that. Oh, we flipping the switch. We right back in every conversation, which obviously, you know, the naysayers are going to be louder than the people who are saying but you know that going into this offseason, there's going to be a lot of talk around the offensive line, BV on the hot seat and all the rest of this stuff. But I like BV, love BV actually. And I think he responds well. We've seen him do it before. Now, he's made a couple of key mistakes. The underrated mistake that he made, Ted Roof, that should have never happened. But he fixed the defense. He responded well and fixed the defense himself, and then went and got Zach Alley, who you can honestly say is perfectly fine being left alone.
Well, and then Ted Roof, even though he's not a great defensive coordinator, right?
No,
he's just not.
No.
But the reason why I always understood the hire is because he trusted Ted Roof, and he had to learn how to be a CEO. So it's like if you're at a job and you just got elevated to manager and you now have to leave the room you were leading that was so successful, and you know someone who it's not necessarily that they're the best assistant manager, but they know exactly how you function and kind of what you want achieved so that you can learn to be that head guy. That's why Roof made sense. He was just there for Venables to stay a part of the defense, but really learn how to be a head coach. And then once that switch kind of went off and he's like, okay, I think I kind of have some of this worked out. Yeah. Now I'll go get somebody who I can be a bit more hands-off. So the Roof hire through that made sense, but you gotta nail the offensive coordinator hire.
My other two, well, and I just want to get your take on this, because my two biggest mistakes that BV made, I think the first was coming here with the Clemson way, meaning that, hey, I'm gonna try to win with these guys. I think he should have just went ahead and cleaned house, probably as he originally intended. But he tried to, and I mean, it's kind of it is what it is with that. The second one I would say probably was not going and getting a Colton Necky or those type of guys and hiring in-house, because this stuff that we'll talk about off screen, but it just seems like when Luttrell left, he left kind of quite the storm here in that locker room, or he basically he was blazing trails, right? And so it because to me it just seemed like all year he was trying to marry two systems. And to me, I think, as I would always say, my friend Ty Hayes always says, two truths can exist at the same time, people. And what I mean by that is that Jackson is going to have to grow up eventually and learn that, hey, for me to go to where I want to go to the league and be a star in the league, I have to be able to run whatever system, right? I can't just run this one system that is what I've ran all my life. But secondly, you can't sit there and try to marry two systems or this and that or whatever. You, as a coach, if I call you, Ty, and you say, hey, Chris, I got a couple of I'm about to run this. I'm about to coach this basketball team. Could you send me a couple of plays? Hey, Ty, have you seen your team yet? No, Chris, I haven't seen my team yet. Why are we talking? Go see your team and see what your kids are capable of. Then come back to me and tell me. Then I can give you a couple of plays to run. Right? 100%. You have to adapt to your kids. And that was the unison. That was the actual marriage that you needed. And that never happened. That's why JJF has been somewhat more successful in his stint as the OC this year for OU, because he actually went and listened to the player and said, okay, I'm going to run these plays. Now, still, you take 10 steps forward, but you take 20 steps back running tight end delays and tight end screens and tight end jet sweeps with Brock Bauer. Bauer Sharp. So, and I love Bauer Sharp. Bauer Sharp is great going north and south, but when you're trying to do east-west stuff with him, come on, man. Like, what are we doing? But those were two mistakes that I think BV made just personally. But I don't think it's mistakes that are high enough, egregious enough to cost you your job this year. You have to get it right with this OC hire, from whether it's going to be Mullen, Craddock, Arbuckle, or GJ Kinney, or if you could go and get Colton Necky and pull him away from Penn State. I don't know.
Good one.
I mean, there's a lot of different names, people. This stuff that, I'm not going to sit here and just talk about all that stuff ad nauseum. You can watch the other videos where we've done that with Chris Mason and Jason, Sooners 360 and Hall of Fame Football College podcast. But still, I mean, Ty, do you, and this will be the last point because I know we got to go some places, but do you have faith that BV can turn this around and put OU back in that conversation, that playoff conversation?
I do. I would have more faith if he was already a head coach before, but he's still learning, right? I think right now, as much as I like Brent Venables, I think it's not that I would keep him because I have just like the faith that he's going to be able to turn it around. I don't know that you're going to go out there and get someone exponentially better without having your roster just melt down. Yeah. And I do like his upside, but that's why, like, I think that I can't say that he's on the hot seat, but his seat is warm, right? Like, I would give him one more year. And that's why it's hard for me to answer this, because if my answer was emphatically like, yes, I have 100% faith, then I don't think I would have him on a 1-year timeline. But because I have him on that 1 year, I worry more about what happens if you get rid of him with the current status of college football. Because then think about it, if the new guy comes in and it's not like he's not getting these players to buy in, you have the 30-day window that goes on top of the transfer portal window now, and then you have the spring window. Mm-hmm. And then it's just like you could be in bad shape if you don't nail the hire. It just feels right now like Oklahoma's on that teeter, and I worry that if you were to remove that weight, the scales would just fall and fall quickly, not in your favor. I think Brent Venables is a guy that's learning. I think he's got high upside. I'd give him another year.
It takes time, people. That's the problem. People are too quick to move on. And there's still that small chorus that will tell you it took Kirby a while to get it to. It took a lot.
And he inherited a really good thing with, Mark Richt. People throw dirt on Mark Richt's name. Go back after this video. Mm-hmm. Do us a favor. Go look at Mark Richt at Georgia. He was not a bad coach. He was winning games.
Notoriously 9-3. Bo Pelini, notoriously 9-3. And a lot of people are talking about it. A lot of these coaches had better situations that they inherited, and that is a problem. And that's why I say, I think if BV had to do it all over again, he would have said no. For all the good things that he done offensively, for all there was a few key good things that he did defensively that Lincoln did, as far as he tried with the defense a little bit, I guess you could say, with Grinch. That was a failed experiment. But Barry Odom, right, went out there and got you studs, right? Somehow they were able to go and get Billy Bowman. Right. So, there were guys, RSJ and a lot of these kids, they were committed, Gentry, and BV kept these kids. Right. So there were some gems. And Ty, you can go back to his videos back in 2022, back in 2021, and he will tell you, Ty said it on there. Hey, look, you only taking 15 kids, which is terrible, but out of those 15 kids,
so your average player rating was very high. It was very good. It's just
Ty said, "Hey, if you get 15 other kids like this and have a 30-player class, we may actually really consider you a threat in the playoffs." Right? So that was,
that recruiting philosophy never made sense to me. There's no even arguing it. Lincoln's recruiting philosophy never made sense to me. 15 guys and Bama's taking 27. Yeah. And it's the same average player rating. And then you wonder when you get into those games and you're like, oh, well, we don't have the depth that you have. And it's like, yeah, you chose not to get it. I don't know why, but
yeah. Ty, what gives me all the faith is kind of what we've been seeing this year. The Texas game was one where I think the offensive coordinator showed his ass and showed his stubbornness, and that really cost us. Thought early on we hit a stride, and then we basically hit a wall after that. The South Carolina game, turnover after turnover after turnover. That game was over before it started, only giving up 15 points to them, right? But when I watched the defense, when I watched a lot of the overall games, You watched Missouri, and I'm not saying Missouri's a good team. Look, they beat us. I am going to say it. I don't think they're a good team. I don't.
Yeah, I mean, Bama, what was the score to that game? 35-0.
But what I say to you though, Ty, is that in most of these games, I go back to the Ole Miss game, and I go back to, I don't know what he said to him, but I damn sure looked at Kiffin, and I think I believe in my heart of heart, I believe Kiffin walked up to BV when he shook his hand and stood there with him and talked to him for a second. I believe that he said something to the effect of, if y'all had a damn offense, y'all would be a problem. Because going into that game, nobody in Oxford thought that was even that game was gonna be like that. If you'd have told me OU would have led it at halftime and did some of the things they did, I just see the effort still there. I see the buy-in still there with a lot of these players.
Now, as much as I want y'all to keep BV, there is one scenario you cannot get blasted these last two.
You can't.
If they go out there and if Bama does to OU what they did to LSU or Missouri, that's where conversations start.
I don't think LSU is doing that to us unless we just go out there. But that's what I'm saying.
No, I agree. I agree with you. I don't think logically, I don't think they will. But if they do, then you know what my question would be. Has the buy-in broke from the players?
I mean, that's the question.
That's the question.
You can ask that with the defense from time to time because you're sitting there saying, I don't think that they've given up on BV. I think they've given up on the offense. I think they're just like,
that's fair.
Dude,
yeah, I agree with
that.
Like,
I mean, what else can we do? We literally just got the ball back for you on the 5, and you go and turn the ball over the very next play.
They're just having fun.
Like Ty, have you sat down and just watched the OU game this year and just been like, I gotta turn this off and I gotta walk away because this is
several times. I have only watched through OU once y'all got into the real meat and potatoes of, because obviously the first few games I'm watching like, okay, yeah, cool. But once it got into the meat and potatoes, Ole Miss and Auburn are the two games I watched all the way through. Other times, I think it was against South Carolina, I actually turned the game and went to a different game because I was at the stage, I was sitting out back smoking a cigar, and I found myself almost throwing the cigar 3 or 4 times, and this was a damn good cigar. And so I was like, I'm not enjoying this at all. I'm going to turn it off because that's where I was just like, okay, I know I've been thinking that Seth isn't the guy, but now I'm done. Like, I can't watch this anymore. This is bad.
The Tennessee game was the game for me where I just felt like this is not healthy because this is not a healthy relationship. This is toxic. Because I'm like, because
imagine how Auburn fans feel.
Well, the very next weekend, what hurt the most, it wasn't even the loss to Tennessee that hurt the most. What hurt the most was that the very next week they went to Fayetteville, Arkansas, and Arkansas ran the same fucking defense that we ran against them, and they ran a lot of the same actions that we ran against them, and they executed everything offensively and defensively, and you was just like, bruh.
Oh, listen, I feel the same way as an Alabama fan about that Tennessee game. Jay, Unfair Sports, great content creator, friend of both of our channels. He's also, he has a love for Tennessee.
Yeah.
He has admitted to me, if Bama executes against Tennessee loses that game.
By 30. That was what frustrated me. I was like, you beat them by 30 every single time if you just execute. Dudes are running down wide open. That defensive line, nobody's scared of them. But I was like, Milroe, you have to stand there in the pocket and hit people on the dime. They're wide open. And I'm thinking, second off, hey, DeBoer and company, please stop running the same damn run play to the same side every single freaking the first 2 downs. Like, stop doing that. Like, what are y'all? Like, y'all are too stubborn. It's almost like playing a video game where you forget, oh shoot, I didn't even run my second style of offense within this playbook. I should have just ran that and I would have won this game. You know what I'm saying? So No, I've watched a couple of Alabama games that I saw that I was just like, this is very frustrating to watch because this should not be a game. I think the I kept up with the South Carolina game. I thought that was really frustrating as well.
See, that game was a lot less frustrating to me because I thought Bama did well in that game outside of, and I've tracked it down to what I consider to be 6 disastrous plays. There's good plays in a game, there's bad plays in a game. But disastrous plays can change the course of a game. There were 6 in that Bama game that made it to where, like, oh my gosh, if you cut these in half, we're sailing into the sunset doing just fine.
Well,
that was a tough watch because of those 6 disastrous plays.
South Carolina is one of the teams, one of the only teams in the SEC that really telegraphs where they're going with the ball.
They're a lot better than their record shows as well.
They are, but they're one of those teams that we got beef with Beamer. But yeah. What I was gonna say to you, Ty, and this will be the last day. I just want to say this to you. I was wrong. I was a big Seth Luttrell fan. I was wrong. I know that I haven't said it a lot to you, but I'm wrong. Were you
also wrong about Hugh Freeze? That's what I want to hear.
Okay, please. Anyways, I'm about 40. But what I would say is simply this right here is that I lost faith in Luttrell because of the East Coast West Coast battle he was having with this offense. I thought to myself, you could take a shot at Drake if you want. I'm a huge Drake fan. You could take a shot at Drake if you want, but you won't do anything up north. Everything is just East West. I hate this offense. Joe John, he had me believing that, hey man, he's going to be a good play caller if he at another place, but I think
needs to go to like
he lost
Texas
me with the
State
tight
or
end
UTSA for a few years to learn. And I don't mean that as a shot. Like, if I didn't think he was a play caller, I'd be like, all right, buddy, go be a tight end coach. I do agree with you. I think he's got a future. Go to one of these smaller schools and grow your philosophy and then go from there.
That's what he needs to do. I meant to say this as well. Luttrell lost me because I think the last game that he called, what I saw him do, he started calling slant routes. And Ty, slant routes are not a part of his playbook. They're not a part of his system. If he runs a slant, it's like every blue moon. It's like 1 out of maybe the next 5 games. 1 out of 5 games he'll run a slant. But when he started running nothing but slant routes up the field, and I was like, we're done. Because he doesn't believe that he can move the ball anymore with Jackson Normal. So, people, look, Ty has OU. I have OU winning this weekend as well.
Wrong.
We're going to end it right here. Got to be at some places. So, Ty Hayes, tell everybody where they can find you at, man.
Hey, you can find me at Around the Table Sports. You can find me at the Bama Standard. You can find me on Bleacher Report both Fridays and every game Alabama plays after the game. I'm doing the post-game stuff for Bama. So, a lot of fun. You can find me pretty much anywhere where they give me a microphone.
Horns down, people. Horns down for peace.
Roll Tide.